Welcome back to another episode of CRM Radio. Today, the voice of customer relationship management, bi-weekly program that tackles the ever-changing world of CRM. And the one man who seems to be able to navigate through all the strange currents flowing through the system, Stacy Gentile. Hey, Stacy.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
I'm doing good here. You ready to pull out your soothsayer hat and look into your crystal ball and tell us where CRM is going today?
Oh, I don't know. I try not to predict the future anymore.
A lot to ask this morning here. Well, maybe your guest can. Who did you bring along today?
I'm much better at predicting the past.
Yeah, aren't we all? So who did you bring along today here? Maybe they can help us predict the future better than you can, apparently, this morning here.
Well, on today's show, we've got Mario Martinez, who is the CEO of Vengreso. He's also a featured writer with Huffington Post, and he actually has his own podcast called Selling with Social. And he hails from the San Francisco Bay Area. Hey, Mario.
Hey, guys. Nice to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization there.
This is my 22nd year in sales. I'm a sales veteran, born and raised, starting out in telemarketing. Ended my corporate career about 3.5 years ago as a former VP of sales and started my own company, which was later merged in about a year after I started under Vengreso. And Vengreso is actually the largest digital sales training and consulting company globally. Decided to lead Vengreso. We basically have two focuses. Number one, helping sellers and sales leaders or teams to create more conversations with more qualified buyers. And number two, helping salespeople win more deals through digital selling. And that's what we do.
One of the key things I saw when I was going through some of your materials in prep for the show was talking about how the modern buyer needs a modern seller. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, if you look at how buyers have changed the dynamics of how they go about purchasing, that has caused sellers to have to look at how to adapt to the modern buyer's buying habits. And if you think about it, today's modern buyer has 4 cardinal attributes. Number one, they're digitally connected. And in fact, the statistics show that we each have an average worldwide of 3.64 connected devices, going up to almost 6.5 by 1 year from now. So what are we doing with those connected devices? We're pushing, we're pulling, we're gathering, we're researching, we're buying, we're consuming, right? So we need to be thinking about what we do as a digitally connected buyer. We are socially engaged. 2019, it was reported that 79% of the U.S. population had a social networking profile. So we are a socially engaged community. We're also mobile attached. And Stacy, you know this. I'm going to go on the line here on the air saying, man, most of us have taken our phones, our iPads, and sometimes even our computers to the bathroom with us. So we are so mobile attached. As sellers, we need to be thinking about, wait a minute, much of the communication that we engage with buyers is going to be on a mobile device. How do we make that short and sweet and make it super powerful and impactful? And the fourth element is our buyers are video hungry, and we are consuming video at an extremely alarming rate. And so we as sellers just need to be thinking about, with those 4 attributes, how do we engage as a modern seller with today's modern buyer?
Right. Now, obviously, you've been in sales for quite a while. I've done it myself, and this is one of the questions that always fascinates me is salespeople today, I think, have to have a completely different skill set than they did 5 years ago and completely different 10 years ago or more. What do you think is the ideal makeup now of a salesperson as far as like mindset and skill sets is to fit into this thing that you're talking about?
Appreciate that question, and I respect your position. Although I would say that I don't think that we used to look for in a seller from 10 years ago has really changed from today, with one exception. And that one exception is that we have to recognize that as a seller, I need to leverage what's called the omni-channel approach to prospecting. And if I'm not there as a seller, if that's not my mindset, then I'm probably not going to survive and do well. And what is the omni-channel? In the old days, we would hire people for their Rolodex, right? We would bring people in. What's your Rolodex? How many contacts do you have? What accounts have you called on? And we try to map to, what does the organization want in terms of penetrating X, Y, or Z accounts, right? Today, we still look at someone's Rolodex, right? Where have they worked at? Who do they know? Because we want to be able to leverage those relationships, which are super critical to a seller's success. But we also recognize that we as leaders, when we're hiring, we need to understand, is this person socially engaged? Do they know how to leverage video? Do they know how to leverage the phone? And can they write well in terms of sending emails? And this is that omni-channel approach to prospecting. There's no longer 1 or 2 arrows in our quiver. We now have 5, 6, 7 arrows that we can use in our quiver, and as a seller, we have to be skilled at all of them. And so I think that's the one thing that I would say has probably changed from 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, to present day.
With the technology now, is it getting easier or is it getting more difficult to create that rapport and that trust with a buyer? Because I think there's 2 big issues, right? When you're trying to sell today is you got to break through the trust barrier and you got to break through the noise barrier. So do you think the technology is making those 2 things easier or harder?
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. It's easier and it's harder. To answer your question, look, I do believe that technology has made it harder for sellers, but it's also easier for sellers. Let me explain. It's harder for sellers because as a seller, I need to think through, if I'm selling on any one given account, on average, the statistics show that we have at least 6.8, maybe 7 buyers inside of an account, right? There's many influencers inside of an account. Generally, there's not one key decision maker. Now, that varies based upon the size of the company. If it's small business, it may be less than a handful or a few people that you may be calling on. But the problem is, if I'm calling on John Smith, and then there's Mary, and then there's Susie, John may want to engage with me through the phone, Mary may want to engage with me through social, but Susie may want to engage with me only through email. And so, yes, it's become harder because now we have buyer preferences that determine how I should engage with them. And I have to know that as a seller. Our CRM systems need to catch up to understand and record what exactly how does this person want to be communicated with? That's the harder part. The easier part is before I only had one way to be able to reach somebody. Then email came along and I had 2 ways. Now I've got a third, which is social, a fourth, which is through video, a fifth, which is through text messaging, and then there's many other ways to be able to reach somebody. Could be direct mail as an example, could be an actual letter. So there's a whole plethora of things that have made my job easier to be able to connect with buyers. So yes, in terms of the answer to your question, it's harder and it's easier.
You're talking about there's like account-based sales strategy type stuff. So do you think that organizations are really kind of buying into that and getting up to speed? And then I think the second question is how well are they doing internally with things like you just mentioned about working in the CRM system and being able to identify the CEO likes text messages, but the CFO likes email and the marketing guy likes video to be the source of communication?
From an account-based marketing perspective or account-based sales program, I think most sales organizations are not doing very well. In fact, most ABM programs, or ABS, account-based sales programs, ABM for marketing, ABS for sales, sometimes used interchangeably and sometimes they mean different things depending on the organization. But in either case, most sales organizations are looking at and saying, what is my top hypo accounts, the high potential accounts that I want to target, and that's the top, whatever it is, 100, 200, 500, whatever the number is, right? And they are putting together ABM-based strategies or ABS-based strategies there. The problem is that if we look at our marketplace, as we all know, it's approximately 50% of our businesses today are those small, medium-sized businesses, right? So that's where we have the commercial sales divisions, we have the mid-market, and we also have our small business sales organizations. Where salespeople and sales leaders are failing is that we're still continuing to spray and pray. We're going to spray everything out. We're going to email blast. We're going to cold call 100 people today. But really, when I was in the trenches, and one of the ways that me as a seller, when I look at my 18-year career in corporate sales, 15 of them were spent inside of President's Club or the 100% Club, right? 15 out of those 18 years. How did that happen? That was because I was religious every single month, my top 10 or my top 20 changed month over month in terms of who I'm targeting, and I'm being focused. And this ABS strategy needs to be rooted down and pushed down all the way down into our small business sales reps, because they need to understand, who am I going after this month? Then, when you do that, that will allow me as a seller to do exactly as you just described. I now can look at my top 10 accounts for the month and say, I've got 6 buyers or 3 buyers. Susie likes to be contacted this way. Johnny likes to be contacted this way. I'm going to use these different mediums to be able to reach them, and now I become hyper-focused and hyper-targeted. And that's really where I think people are struggling at. And, recently in our State of Digital Selling report for 2019, which as a matter of fact was just literally launched today, State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn, we actually talk about this particular issue. And one of the things that we found, one of the key insights, is that most sales professionals are still using the free version of LinkedIn. Now, if you think about social as a component, as part of your omni-channel, I would argue that most salespeople are still using the free version, which indicates that they're rarely engaging on that particular channel because of the limitations that are placed on the free version as opposed to a paid version. And I'd say most, it was approximately 63% of our respondents, which was over 860 respondents to our survey, show that they're still using the free. In that case, we are still suffering from the inability to leverage the omni-channel.
And that report that you just came out, and we can talk more about this when we come back after the break, but it does primarily zero in on LinkedIn, right?
It does, which is primarily the largest B2B social networking site. So if you're selling B2B, you're likely going to be there on LinkedIn. Twitter is the afterthought.
When we come back from the break, you can make me a believer in LinkedIn, because I think personally LinkedIn is something I've always had a love-hate relationship with. I'm one of the 63% that's only using the free version. I mean, I think I've got 750 or so connections on it. And I'm successful in using LinkedIn for non-sales things. But when it comes to sales, I find myself more bobbing and weaving, because every time I connect with somebody, they want to hit me up immediately to sell me something. So
that's that spray and pray approach.
No, here we go.
Yeah, that's that spray and pray approach, right? I mean, we're taking spray and pray on email, and we're now putting it onto platforms like LinkedIn or with video or with phone calls. And that's got to go. I just got to say it. It's got to go, man. We cannot keep doing that spray and pray approach.
Okay, so when we come back from break, let's talk more about your report, and let's talk more about how companies can implement a process.
You got it.
Take it away, Paul.
We know you rely on your CRM system, and it's usually a love-hate relationship. Most CRM systems, well, let's face it, they're expensive. They're hard to understand. People don't use them properly. And you're probably paying for features that you don't even want. If that's your case, then maybe it's time to simplify. It's time to get more from your CRM. Why don't you go back to the original? Trust Goldmine. We helped pioneer the industry, after all. Goldmine CRM is, well, it's simple, it's affordable, and it's proven. If all those sound appealing to you, if you're just tired of the CRM headaches that you're getting from trying to implement something that's just too complicated, too expensive, and too much for you to figure out, then why not go back to the original? Visit Goldmine today, goldmine.com. All right, back to our guys talking about the truth here, and I got to tell you, I'm 100% with you, 110% with you. I am so frustrated every time I meet somebody or hand out my business card or get theirs or sign up for LinkedIn or sign up for any info. I get sprayed all over, and to the point I don't even want to give anybody my business card anymore here.
Well, that's okay, because I'm giving everybody your business card.
I knew there was some reason.
That's why you're getting blown up. But I don't want them calling me.
You're onto something. I think people are actually afraid to sign up for demos. They're afraid to ask for information. They're afraid to accept a LinkedIn invitation because they know what comes next. They're going to get buried by a bunch of spray and pray.
Right. Yeah, especially with online form. Every time you go and you want to look at something, you fill that form in. I swear your phone will be ringing in 30 seconds.
Yeah, right.
And then they call you for the next 3 months.
Right. And so we all think that a CRM and is all about building a database, but you got to build it organically. You can't just go buy it or accumulate it and then bury people in uninvited sales attempts.
Well, sales is at the core of it. It's still about relationships. It's still about, building trust. You can't just walk up to a woman and say, "Hey, marry me." That adage is still relevant with.
Although that did work.
That
did work in my case. That's the only way I got married. So.
Yeah, and mine too.
And mine.
But that was the old days.
Well, that just goes to prove it's easier to get married than it is to close a deal. I'm a dead man when she gets home. So the report that you came out with, and you said that you just published it today, was called the State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn. What is kind of working there? What isn't? What is happening with LinkedIn? Like I said earlier before the break, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship, and maybe it's part misinformation and part like every time I go on there I get blown up. What's going on with it?
Let me start out with, first off, we're not a partner of LinkedIn in any way, shape, or form, right? So I want everybody to know we're a digital sales transformation company, and LinkedIn is arguably one of the most powerful tools that a seller can use when engaging on social with B2B network, okay? But the whole point of this conversation really pulled from a study that was done by LinkedIn in their 2018 State of Sales report that talked about decision makers and buyers who responded to the survey, which was thousands of people, reported that 62% of decision makers look for an informative LinkedIn profile when considering talking with a sales rep. Now, this is super important. If you think about this, 62% of decision makers look at a rep's profile when considering talking with them. Specifically, when you reach out to them and you want to connect, as an example, you send an email or you send a message, as an example, or you engage with them through the online platform. As sellers, we need to be thinking about what this means. What this means is that buyers, to your point that you mentioned earlier, that when someone sends you something, like you're almost afraid to be able to hit that little check mark to connect with somebody and let them into your network because you don't want that spray and pray. What buyers are looking for is they're looking for whether or not this seller is going to add value to their network. And therein lies the big challenge when we connect with a buyer. We go at connecting with a buyer with the spray and pray approach traditionally. What do I mean by that? You connect, and immediately, we've all had it, as soon as you connect, there's a product pitch that someone sends you, right? And it's like, bleh, just diarrhea. Here's the point. We talk about this in the State of Digital Selling report, the State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn 2019 report. We talk about the PVC method. That's our PVC sales methodology. As sellers, we need to personalize that message. We need to add value every time we engage with you, whether it's a connection request, whether it's an engagement on a social post, or whether it's a message through in-mail or a message. We need to add value. That's the V for the PVC. And then we need to drive to a call to action. And most sellers want to have a call to action be, I want a meeting today. Well, to your point earlier that you said, Stacy, look, most of us don't get married on the first time we meet somebody. No, it takes time to date somebody. And that's the same exact thing with building relationships. The relationship sales model has not changed. The methodology has not changed. Just as you go from the phone to email to social to video, that continuum of how you build a relationship does not change. But what LinkedIn gives us in terms of a powerful network is the days of us attending live networking events where we shake people's hands and be able to meet people and we network, we collect business cards, we do follow-ups. It is now available on this big, ginormous 600 million people live networking event that's happening every single day, 24 hours a day, and it's called LinkedIn. And we as sellers need to figure out how to leverage that. And so I think that's the power behind, like, oh, crap, wait a minute, something has changed in our environment, and that is buyers are going to look at my profile. What does it say? Am I a quota-crushing sales rep? Top President's Club earner? Best contract negotiator? No buyer cares about that. What they do care about is whether or not you can add value in the process. And that was something that was very interesting when we did this research. In fact, if people go to, I believe the website is the stateofdigitalselling.com, the stateofdigitalselling.com, and they can pull this down. But point number three, was very interesting. 59% of our sellers in this survey, 59% of our sellers did not have any media whatsoever on their LinkedIn profile. Now think about this. That's like going to a company's website that you're looking at purchasing services from, and they have no media, no blogs, no white papers, no ebooks, no content, nothing. All it says is company ABC, buy my service, or we're the greatest company in the world. That's crazy that we as sellers have not thought about the fact that, wait, our marketing organizations, large or small, our marketing organization has a website, and you cannot live these days without a website, generally speaking, or at least a landing page that's engaging, that provides valuable information, engaging content. So if marketing markets one-to-many and knows this, why are sellers who market one-to-one not enabling content on their personal minicompany.com websites, which is their LinkedIn profile? And 59% of people have not added media, and that is a huge miss, Stacy, a huge miss in the marketplace as a seller, especially if 62% of our buyers are looking at our profile before they engage with us.
Where do you think is that breakdown? Is it the difficulty in creating content? Is it time because they're too busy doing other stuff, or expense? Or where is the primary breakdown in that you brought up?
Again, I go back to, we're still stuck in this spray and pray productivity measurement mode. Most sales organizations, if you look at the VPs of sales and higher, they're my age and above, 45 and older, right? We all have been in sales for 15, 20 years, and we got to the VP of sales role, and we learned how to do selling the old way. And so you still walk onto a sales floor, and sales floors are still having cold calling days. Like, oh my God, have we not moved past the concept that our rate of response on a cold call is around 10%. I'm not saying don't cold call. I'm saying we shouldn't have cold calling days. We should have what's called prospecting days. And prospecting days means that I'm going to use multiple channels, and it may be social, it may be creating a video and sending a personalized video, it may be text messaging, it may be an email, or it may be a phone call. And that's what we should be looking at, is prospecting days or productivity-based days that are measuring the omni-channel, not just a channel. And that's where I think most leaders have not got out of what I call the stuck on stupid mode. And by the way, I was once there. Like, this is me. I was once there. We think that this is the way we've done it, and so therefore we're going to continue to do it that way. And if you think about this, one of the other important points that we talk about in the State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn report is around salespeople not being super connectors. And what we found is that approximately 50% of sales professionals who are on LinkedIn and use LinkedIn have fewer than 500 connections. That means that I, as a prospector, when I'm engaging with my buyers, I'm not reaching out and connecting with them pre-meeting, during meeting, or post-meeting, whether I close the deal or I don't close the deal. And that is the kiss of death, because think about this. None of us have the old school Rolodex, that big giant turning ball with the index cards A through Z. I was in a presentation this past week, and the average age of the sales team was about 55 and older. It was about 250 folks. It was in a traditional transportation and logistics company, very traditional, and we had 5 people out of 250 people that raised their hand that said they have that old school Rolodex, A through Z index. So where is our Rolodex at? That's what you got to be thinking about. It is now stored on LinkedIn. This is a giant, massive Rolodex. And so if I want to be valuable to the next company I go work for, or to my buying community where I can actually grow my network, and in theory, the more connections I have, the more conversations I'm creating, the bigger and better my pipeline will be, and the better opportunity I will be able to close more deals. If I'm not connecting with people, then I'm missing the boat in terms of using my digital Rolodex, which is this tool called LinkedIn. And I'm certainly not using the old school Rolodex. I'm not collecting business cards. Well, what am I doing then? That's the basic fundamentals of sales. Connect with buyers. And that's what we found in our report, was that most salespeople are not super connectors, i.e. 50% of them.
Well, Mario, that is great information. I wish we had more time. There's a number of things I wanted to get into, like social selling index on LinkedIn, that I had not known that it was here, but we'll probably have to save that for a different show. So again, thank you for coming on the program. Is there a way, if somebody's interested in learning more about you and your organization, that they can get a hold of you directly?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to go to Vengreso. That's V as in Vengreso, Victor, Engreso, Vengreso.com. And, of course, the report that I just referenced, you can type in stateofdigitalselling.com, stateofdigitalselling.com, and you can download it there. We have it available on the site, and I think you'll find it super insightful.
Awesome. I highly recommend everybody go out, download that report, and then go fix your LinkedIn. All right. Thanks, Mario.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yep. Bye.
You've been listening to another episode of CRM Radio Today. Brought to you by the good folks at Goldmine. Right here in the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.